Hi everybody! Thanks for joining us again. If you've participated in any of our graphic design classes before, then you know that we've worked mostly with Illustrator in the past, doing some illustrations and some flat icons and just learning a little bit about how Adobe programs work. But today we're actually going to be working with a different Adobe program. We're going to be working with InDesign. And InDesign is also another fantastic program that I absolutely love. And the reason we're going to be doing InDesign today is because we're going to be creating a really awesome resume that helps you stand out, looks creative, and is just going to set you apart from everybody else out there. So if you're looking for a job right now or looking to switch your career and do something a little bit different, we're going to work on how to format your resume and make it look really cool. So let's get started. If you see on my screen here, we do have InDesign already pulled up. I'm going to go ahead and start a document. So this is going to be all about how you set up a document in InDesign, which can be a little bit intimidating if you've never worked with this program before. So I'm going to start by clicking File here, and we're going to click New, and we're going to click a new document. So you don't want a book or a library, just a new document here. Now when I select a new document, kind of like how we had with Illustrator, there's a couple of different options that pop up. First of all, we can change our units from picas to inches to make it a little bit easier to understand. You can go ahead and do a custom size, but since we're making a resume today, we're going to keep it at a nice 8.5 by 11, and we're going to keep the orientation portrait here. There's a little checkbox right here that says facing pages. We're going to turn facing pages off, and the reason that that's an option here in InDesign is because if you're making a booklet, something that's got facing pages like the box says, you can actually create that layout so that you have that visual right there so that it's easier for you to create there. But we don't need that today. We're just making one-page document, just a nice resume, so we can turn facing pages off. Of course, there are a lot of other options that you can explore. So you have your margins here that you can look into. You can look into bleed and slug, but we don't necessarily need to do that today. So if you're interested in those things, explore those on your own. For now, we're going to keep it super simple, and we're going to just click Create. There we go. So you can see that we already have margins set up here on the sides with this purple line here. But this is basically our working document here, which is going to make things, it's really nice to see here. So what we're going to also do now to get started with our resume, we're going to make grids for our resume so that we can have a nice, evenly spaced and nicely laid out design. So let's go ahead and make some guidelines and put those on here. If I come up to Layout, there is the option here to create guides. So I'm going to click Create Guides. And for a resume, I always think a good rule of thumb is to split it up into thirds because that means that it's a little bit more dynamic than just having it, everything on one side or one big column or anything like that. So thirds is a really good thing to split it up into. So I'm going to click 1, 2, 3 rows. No, not rows. I want 1, 2, 3 columns, and we're going to click Preview here. Now if you can see this, it might be a little difficult to see because the guidelines are super faint, but that's for a reason. It's so that you can work and not get too overwhelmed by millions of guidelines, which I do sometimes. So we have our guidelines here. I've got these things right here. As far as rows go, for a resume, I kind of like to go ahead and put 5 rows on there so that it's nice and split up and things are kind of evenly spaced for you there. So I'll go ahead and do 5 rows there, 5 columns here, click OK, and you can see on my page here I've already got my grids and guides set up. Now if for any reason while I'm designing this, if I feel like I need to move them over, I can of course move them like this, or I can put them right back where they belong. So that is setting up our guidelines for our template. The next thing that we're going to do is to create our format for our design work here. And formatting it is really going to help you this goes very smoothly, so it's going to really streamline the process of designing it. So we're going to start by establishing what our color palette is. Now I have, in my libraries over here, I have a lot of color palettes picked out, but I'm just going to go back over here to properties, and just so that we don't have to be distracted by all the millions of color palettes over there. So I'm going to come up to Window here, and I'm going to click Color, and we're going to click Color here, and that's going to bring our color window over here. So I'm going to start by using this rectangular tool right here and just making a nice little square here. You can see, just like when we talked about in Illustrator before, you have your fill stroke here on top, and then the outline or your stroke here, right, the color right there. So I'm going to switch those so that I'm working with my fill color, and I'm going to change this to RGB so that I can work with hex codes. And one of the colors that I'm going to be working with today, 7, 8, is this nice, pretty cloudy teal here, because I feel like it's a very nice color, but it's also, it stands out a good bit, so that's a fun color to work with. And that's going to be the color for some of my design elements. And then I'm just going to copy this and pull it down right there. And we're going to use a darker teal for more of our text and stuff like that. So our text is going to be this nice darker teal. And you can see these two colors are pretty nice. They're nice and cool, but they're still bright and kind of fun, so it's going to help you stand out. So if you're designing this, do you have to use these colors? Absolutely not. If you have another color scheme in mind, where you're like, I really want my resume to be these colors, go for that instead. I just put these up here so that you can see what kind of colors that I'm working with today. So that is my overall color scheme. And again, when you're establishing your color palette, do you have to stick to 2 colors? Nope, you can have as many colors as you want. I would be careful with doing a bunch of different colors though. So if you have maybe 3 or 4 colors tops, no more than that, because more than that is going to look overwhelming, and people are going to look at it and think that's too much. So they just want to see something that's nice for their eyes to rest on, but also fun and gets their attention. So 2 to 4 colors on your resume is a good rule of thumb. So now that I've got my colors here established, I'm going to go ahead and establish my hierarchy of text. So we're going to establish what font, the size, and if it's going to be bold or not. And again, this is formatting all of this stuff now is really going to streamline the process whenever we're actually going through and designing this stuff. So going to click on my text tool over here on the left-hand side. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag a nice box out here, something nice and big. And in my properties panel over here, you can choose with your character here, you have the type of font you're working with, whether or not it's regular, bold, anything like that, the size of font that you're working with. InDesign is really a font-based program to be working with, so there are a lot of things that you can do in InDesign that you might not necessarily be able to do in other programs. It's really great and helpful for creating small little nuances and making your design really your own. So that's what I like about InDesign is I like fonts, so of course I like InDesign. So the font that I'm going to be working with today is called Open Sans. So the font that I'm going to be working with today is going to be Avenir. So we're going to start by making this nice and bold. Avenir is a great font because it's really clean, it's really universal, it's great to work with if it's something that you're interested in. It's a sans serif font, so it doesn't have the little lines at the top or the bottom of the fonts or anything like that. So I'm going to start by using Avenir Black, and maybe I should go ahead and put something here. So I'm going to put H1 because this is our first heading, and that's how I'm going to remember this here. So it's on black. I'm also going to set this up to 60. See where that gets us. A bit too big here. So let's see, maybe we'll go down to 50. I like 50, so we'll keep that at 50 there. And one more, I'm going to use my eyedropper tool over here. First I'm going to highlight this portion here. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to, just like that, turn it to our teal that we were talking about earlier. With my headings, I also want it centered on the page here, and I know that if I have a big heading like this, I'm probably going to want it centered on the page. So once I've got that figured out, there we go, that's our first heading. So after our first heading, I'm going to go ahead and kind of copy that. Like so. And then you can also, if you're wondering, copying, you can either just click copy up at the very top of the page here, edit, copy, paste is right there. You can use your shortcut key, so if you're working with a Mac, that's Command C and Command V. For pasting, if you're working with a PC, then that's going to be a Control C, Control V situation. Or something that I really like to do is to just click on it and hold down the Option or the Alt key and then just drag it. So if I click and drag right like that, it'll just go ahead and copy it and then put it wherever I drag it to. So I kind of like using that. So if you see me clicking on something and then just making another one, I'm usually holding down the Option key or the Alt key if you're using a PC, and then you can actually just make a copy that way. Super easy. So for our second heading, this is going to be H2. And it doesn't need to be as big as our first heading here. So with H2, we're going to kick this down to, we're going to say 25. And instead of it being Avenir Black, I might turn it to Avenir Heavy, which seems like it might be bolder than black, but it's actually not. Black is the heaviest of the Avenir fonts, and then heavy is just a little bit lighter. So I think I like that for our second heading here. And then for our paragraph, now with headings, it's really easy to do, a different color or something like that so that it stands out. But with your copy, your body copy or your paragraphs, you really want that to be either black or white if it's got a color behind it, or gray or some sort of really legible shade of gray, something that's really easy to read, because if it's difficult to read, nobody's going to look at it. So that's the whole point of your resume, is for somebody to be able to read it. So it needs to be legible for sure. So with this paragraph, which I'm just going to sit here and call paragraph, there we go, we're going to change this to Avenir Roman, I think, and then I'm going to put it down to a 12-point font. So Roman might actually be a little bit light. I think I might go with medium here. That looks good. And now this teal color is really nice to read, so it's actually not that difficult. I might actually just leave all of my font in this teal color because I like it. So if you're using a brighter font or something like that, like if my H1 was this blue color that we have here, I might do something different for my body copy and my paragraphs. But since it's not too bad, I think I'm just going to leave it right where it is. So that is how we go ahead and format, and you might think this kind of feels like a waste of time, but I promise this is going to make everything easier whenever we get started actually designing our resume. So let's get started with our resume. I'm going to pull these over here to our side, and I usually use our side panels like this a lot so that I can put a lot of information over on the sides and then actually design over here. So let's just get started. We have to put your name on your resume. It needs to be bold, it needs to be exciting, somebody needs to see it and say, oh, that seems really exciting for me. I would like to hire somebody like that. So let's start by creating a nice blue square with our teal here. I'm going to do right like this, and I'm just going to pull it all the way down to the top of our first guideline there. And this is where guidelines come in handy. It's going to make your design work so much easier. So I've pulled that down here, and I know that H1 is going to be my name, so I'm also going to copy and put that over here. There we go. I would like to center this in our blue square here. So I'm going to select my text, hold down the Shift key, and select this box, and then let go of the Shift key. When I click on this box, that means it's now a key object. So I can align my original selection to this key object here. In my Align panel over here, it'll say Align to Key Object. So what I can do is just center it right there in the middle of that blue box. So I'm just going to put your name here because we're making a nice little template, and this template is going to be available for you to download at the end of this too. So if you like what we've done here, you can actually just go through, download it, open up a PDF, and then you'll be able to edit it and put all of your information on it however you want. Super handy, right? So put your name here, and that's where our one and only first heading is going to go. It's going to go at the very top here. And then now here's where we get to play around with the information that you're going to be giving. So we can start by creating a second heading here. Going to Option Drag, pull this over here, and put it right at the bottom of this heading here. And this is going to be where we put our education. Now I do want to add a little bit more of a design element here, so I'm going to click on the rectangle tool again, and I'm going to make a nice little box right like that. Use my eyedropper tool, make it blue, and then it's covering up my text now, which is semi-intentional. I'm going to right click on it, and we're going to arrange and send to back. There we go. That looks pretty cool. I like the way that looks. So this is actually going to be super easy to do. I'm just going to click and drag over both my text and my box that I've just created, and I'm going to move with the Option button, hold this down, pull it down to here, and now this is something that I can just edit and continue to use over and over again, which is going to be super fun. So professional. Experience. There we go. And this is where you can actually put in the information about where you've worked before, and it's going to be good for that. So we've already got that. Now with stuff like this, every resume is not going to be the same. So you might have gone to a couple of different schools. You might have a couple of different degrees. You can put a larger section for your education and a smaller section for professional experience if you're just getting into the workforce or into your career and you don't have a lot of professional experience. There is no set way to make a resume. So you can really play with it, be creative, and really tailor this so that it's good for you and what you've done here. So I'm going to take the professional experience and just leave it right there. And then we can just go ahead and drag this over. Now you'll see that I'm using my guidelines here. I'm going to also bring both of these over here. And I need to make this much smaller. This is going to be our skills section here. So these, I'm going to click and drag right like that. So that's the second part of this. We're going to have our skills be right here. And then we'll have another section here. I'm going to click and drag. Probably put it right here. Maybe here. There we go. So you can see, because we did a lot of work beforehand, that this is getting really easy to just be able to pull out our text, add stuff on there, and really organize it in a way that seems logical. So I'm going to go ahead and take a break from this, and then we'll go ahead and start putting in our paragraph and our body copy. Okay, so now you can see that we have added in a bunch of the information that you're going to need on your resume. So where you've gone to school, any professional experience that you have, any skills or licenses. There are lots of other categories that you can add here, so you don't have to necessarily put the ones that I've got here. You can put awards that you have, you can put achievements, anything that's pertinent to the career or the job that you have that you feel like needs to go on your resume. Go ahead and put that on there. So don't necessarily take what I've got here. Like I said, this is just a template. You can take this template and really make it your own. So the important thing that we need to do now is actually put the most important part of your resume on here, your contact information. So as you can see right above here on the top left, I've left a nice little square available for our contact information, and I'll zoom in on that here. So we're going to take our paragraph here and we're going to just option drag it over because we're going to be using one of our paragraph sizes. There we go. So let's start by adding in a phone number here. And I'm going to actually turn this to be a left justified one. No, you know what? I'm going to make it align up with the edge right there. So start with your phone number. So we'll put a phone number on here. Looks good to me. It's totally my phone number. Okay, and then we're going to put underneath that, going to option drag it down so that it's right there at the bottom. And then I option drag too many. That's my bad. Okay, we're going to push that down right there by about 20 points. Put your email address here. Yeah. There you go. There is a totally reasonable email. And then we're also going to do the exact same thing, and you can choose what else you want to put on here. So if you have a website or a portfolio, or if you have maybe social media that you want to add to it, literally anything that you think is important that needs to go here on your contact information, a way for a future employer to contact you. If you want them to see something, you can put it here. So I'm just going to leave a nice little space for an email, I think. There. And shift, there we go. Or not an email, a website, that's what I'm going to put there. There's your website there. So that's how I've got it here. Let's make sure some things line up nicely. So I'm actually gonna click and drag over all of these and make sure that this lines up with this little blue box here. I think that's a really good idea. So there's something else that we can do here to make it a little bit more interesting. I'm gonna add some little icons to it. Now these are icons that I've already created. Prior to this, we talked a little bit about creating your own flat icons in my first graphic design video. So if you go back to that, look at how to make a flat icon, see some of the ways that you can do it. You could probably make this icon yourself. But for now, I'm just going to tell you that I went ahead and did it. If you want to download the template, you're free to use these as well. So InDesign is a little bit weird when it comes to importing images. So you can't just copy an image and paste it and call it a day, because InDesign is probably going to reject it and your document's going to get messed up. So what we're going to do, right above our rectangle tool here, there's a rectangular frame tool. It's got a square with a little X in it. We're going to click on that one, and right next to my number here, I'm going to hold down the Shift key, click and drag, and we're going to make a nice little box here. Going to scoot that over. Maybe not so far. About right there. Okay, so now that's got that little X right there, we're going to actually take an image and we're going to place it inside of that box. That binding box is kind of like a window for an image. So what we're going to come do is we're going to click on it. We're going to come up to File, and we're going to click Place right there. Now when you click Place, you're placing an image into your InDesign document. So I'm going to pull it from my downloads here. I will. Pretty sure I downloaded it. Maybe it's on my desktop. No. There they are. Okay. Sometimes it takes me a while to find things. Okay. So I'm going to start by a mobile icon here. There's the icon we made. Looks like a little cell phone. I'm going to click open. Now, you can see because we had already selected our little binding box that it just turned blue, and that might seem weird. But if you think of your rectangular frame tool, your little binding box as a window, there's actually something behind that window. So if I double click on this, let's see, how big is it? Oh, it's actually pretty large. It's going to be kind of hard to see, but there is a brown outline that shows you the total size of the image that I just put inside of that binding box, which is huge. So I'm going to actually zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to take this, we're going to right click on it, we're going to click fitting, we're going to click fill frame proportionally. There we go. So now you can see you find the entire image in there. Like I said, InDesign is a little bit weird about it, but once you get used to what you're doing, it totally makes sense. I can also double click on it. When I get the brown binding box around my image, you can see here that I'm actually changing, this is actually a really good way to illustrate this. I'm actually changing the size of the image that's inside of the box, but not changing the box itself. So the box that I put there will stay the same. The image is what I'm changing right now, and I wanted to make sure that it fits all the way inside of that box there. So there we go. Let me zoom back in here. I'm going to take this option, drag that down a line right there, and then right here as well. If I double click on this, I can delete the image out of these binding boxes, and then this is a really great way to make sure that the image, your icons are going to stay the exact same size as any of the other icons on your page. If you keep it the binding box the same, then everything that's inside that binding box is going to be the same. It's really great. So let's go ahead and repeat this process. Have a little email and a computer icon here that we're going to put in. So place. There we go. Is that the email one? Here we are. There we go. And it already knew that it probably was going to want us to format it to be a little bit smaller than the actual size of the icon was there. So InDesign is great. It went ahead and did that for us. Do this one more time. Place. Find your image. No, we want the computer one now. And there we go. And that's it. So that is an awesome resume here. Now, it might not look like much because we have a lot of grids and guidelines going on right now, but don't worry, we can actually get rid of those. So if you look on our left toolbar here, there's a little tiny square, looks kind of like a computer screen. Mostly it just looks like a little square. If you right click on this square and click preview, you can see how your resume is going to look without any of the grids, any guidelines, any other distractions. And as you can see, it's actually pretty clean. I like it a good bit. What I don't like is how this is lined up here. So when we had our guidelines on there, it kind of made sense to have these line up to the right. But now that we are looking at it without any weird guidelines or anything like that, it's kind of like, oh, why did we do that? So we can come through here and change it, and this is why it's always a good way to preview this before you're just like, yep, good to go, love it. But yeah, I like it so far. I think it looks pretty good. So if you guys are happy with that, I'm happy with it. Like I said, there's a download for this as a PDF in the comment box. So if you go below, check it out, download it. You can edit it as a PDF and change it to be your resume and not just a random resume template. But then you can also explore InDesign on your own. You can create different colors. You can change everything that you like about it. You can take these skills and really make your own eye-catching, eye-popping resume, and that's going to help set you apart in whatever future endeavors that you have. So thank you for joining us again, and we'll see you next time.